Hey guys, I have a video for you today. Today it's going to be on the Direware T95. This is a model made by Eric at Direware. He's been making it for a little while now, and it's a mid-sized knife. We'll talk about some of the specs here in a little bit, but it's a really great knife that you guys can order, customize as you feel fit. The way they do their ordering is a little bit different. They kind of, you put in your name, send them your email, and then eventually they'll get in touch with you on what you can order and how you can configure it. And then once your name pops up, usually I would say 6 months to a year and a half, they'll contact you, and that's when you can configure your knife. So that's what happened here. I put this order in about 8 months ago, and I received it a couple months ago, and now I'm just now making a video on it. I chose to get it with the inlays on both sides. I chose the silver twill, which apparently not too many people do. They got their blue silver twill, which is a lot more popular than, of course, their carbon fiber, and marble carbon fiber is quite a bit more popular. But I wanted something a little bit subdued, not too flashy. And the silver twill I've always thought was really beautiful. I had a knife prior to this, a Will Moon in silver twill, and although I ended up selling the knife, I did like it, but one of my favorite things about it was the silver twill, so that's what I opted for in this knife. So let's get into the knife. First, the size. So this is a 3.5 inch blade. I believe it's actually a little bit bigger. I want to say it's almost 3.7 inch blade, so it's a pretty good sized knife, and we'll throw up a comparison here. So here it is next to a Thorburn L51, and you can see it's very similar in size, and the Thorburn has a 3.8 inch blade, so very close, very comparable. Here is a Direware Solo. This is a V5. You can see also usually the Solo, most people think as being their biggest knife, but actually the T95 is a longer knife. Not quite as wide, not quite as thick, but it's definitely a good sized knife. Alright, again, something a little bit smaller. Well, let's go with the Direware F95. Okay, and you can see those are pretty close to the same size there. Okay. Alright, let's talk about some of the good. Alright, so some of the good is, and one of my favorite things I already kind of talked about, was the inlays. So not just the beauty of the inlays, which you can definitely see that they are, but how clean they are. So there's, I mean, no discernible difference. If I had my eyes closed and I couldn't see what I was doing, you wouldn't even be able to tell that there was anything done here. It's just such a good transition from the twill to the steel there. So excellent on that. And I already knew that they were like that. This is my 4th Direware. It is my favorite. I did have some pretty amazing ones, but this one has become my favorite, and we'll talk about why as we go through. Another pretty awesome thing is their pivot. As you can see on the older style, they didn't have the see-through pivot. They kind of had a very traditional style pivot. Still a big beast of a pivot, but this one's really cool. So not only because you can see through it, but also because they're different size Torx bits, which I think is cool. That way, you know, when you go to undo this knife, you don't have to have 2 T20 size Torx. And so that's kind of cool. You know, everybody buys a set of Torx. They don't buy 2 T20s. They buy a set, you know, just like I have. So instead I can use, and I forgot what they are, but it's like a T20 and a T19 or something like that. Whatever it may be. But yeah, it's pretty cool pivot. I've never had a see-through pivot before. I know RJ Martin, and there's a few other users that do it, but I like that they did it, that they chose to do it on this model. I think that it's a better, cooler looking pivot than the prior ones. Not sure it does any better as far as strength or anything like that. It's just for aesthetics, and I think it looks nice. Also, what came with it, so it comes in a very basic cardboard box, a la Hinder or a la whoever it may be, but it came with some extra parts. So it came with an extra clip, an extra pivot, and a couple extra barrel spacers. Also, when I ordered mine, I opted to get a back spacer. Unfortunately, as you can see, there's not a back spacer. So that's kind of on, I guess, back order or whatever it is. But they said as soon as they get the material in, they'll make one and ship it out to me. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, I'm basically getting this set of barrels, the extra set of barrels, and a back spacer. So plenty of extra parts if I ever feel the need to switch them out or get a different look, or these ones wear out, or whatever it may be. Alright, let's talk about something that is kind of unique, I suppose. There's a lot of these hard working, hard use knives, right? You got the Direwares, you got, let's see, a Hoback, Quayback, hard use knives, right? When you think of hard use knives, you think, you know, sharpened pry bar. You know, is this going to be a Medford? Am I going to get something that, yeah, I can cut with, but it's not going to be a beautiful slicer. It's not going to be something that I want to open up envelopes or boxes or whatever it is, right? I'm not out beating on knives out in the woods and, you know, batoning with them and sticking them in trees and jumping on them. That's not really my thing. I have different knives that I will take out into the woods if I want to do some camping or something like that. Those are going to be fixed blades for me. I spend a little bit too much money on these folders, and I'm not going to take them out into the woods and do that kind of stuff. So something really cool that Direware does, and they've been doing for a while, is they grind their knives very thin behind the edge. You can see it here. There's not much bevel at all. So what does that do? Well, it helps it cut really, really well. So if I'm going to cut up an apple or cut up, you know, some boxes or whatever it is, it's going to cut really well. And Eric sends his knives out extremely sharp. I mean, popping the hair off your arm sharp, not cutting the hair off, they pop off. Alright, so I'm going to get an example here for the behind the edge. This one's, and I measured before the video because last video just took too long and I was doing it through the camera lens, yada yada yada. Anyway, so the grind behind the edge, behind this one is 0.019 inches. So, you know, I would say it's in that paramilitary 2 range. For example, the L51 in a previous video was 0.021 inches, I believe, and a little bit thicker on the L51 compact was actually like 0.025 inches behind the edge. So you're looking at a big beefy knife, but with a really solid cutting angle surface, if you will. So that's pretty impressive to me. It's nice to have a knife that you can grab and it feels good in the hand, but it also has the ability to cut really well. That's what we all want, right? We buy a knife to be sharp, to cut really well, and ultimately if you're a collector you want it to be beautiful, rare, and all those other things. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't cut, what's really the point? Alright, enough rant about that. They do a really good job with that. And the next thing that I want to talk about is that hand feel. So this knife being a little bit thick here, and that nice swell, you can see it's contoured. Hopefully you can see it. It's a little bit tough to tell, but it is contoured like that. So it just fills up your hand so well. And I mean, it just feels great. No hot spots whatsoever. It's absolutely perfect. It's exactly what I want all my knives to feel like when I have them in the hand. Alright, that's enough about that one. That's pretty simple one. Alright, let's talk about the action. Probably the best thing about the knife, period, is the action. I'm going to preface this with saying I have never owned a Grimsmo. Don't know if I ever will. Their secondary prices are insane, and you know, I'm on the list. I sent in my email, whatever. I may never get one, but I imagine that they're like this. So it's hard to get it on camera because I have it kind of close, but I mean, it just falls so easy. And that's even with me putting my finger on the lock bar a little bit. So a lot of times when I close, I actually close it from the side because it still falls. And I just don't want it to guillotine, but it will. And you can hear the action. It kind of has a click clunk, so you got to listen to it pretty close, but it's got a really awesome sounding opening. Here, I'll let you hear it. So it's got a really good sound to it, and it's easy to manipulate, and it's easy to open in multiple different ways. The detent is exactly what it should be. It's exactly what it should be. It's what you expect from a custom knife, and it's exactly what you get. You can't shake this thing out, even though it's a relatively thick, heavy blade. You can't shake it out, and it flies out every time, every which way that you want to open it. Alright, so I took some measurements before this, and I want to kind of compare it a little bit. Oops, bump the camera. Of course I did. Let's see. And I'm just going to go through these really quick. Alright, so again, when we're talking about these big chunky knives, we're thinking that they're super thick this way, right? So I'm going to read these off for you. The Direware Solo V5 is going to be 0.64 inches thick. The Hoback Quebec this version is made by Custom Knife Factory. It's going to be 0.59 inches. The L51 is actually going to be the thickest at 0.68 inches, which might be a surprise to a lot of you. And the Direware T95 is 0.52 inches, so basically half an inch. So even though it looks like a huge knife, and we think of Direware as being big, huge, hard use knives, it's actually the thinnest of these four. I know we don't think of Thorburn that way, but it's actually the thickest one here. And yeah, it's because it's a liner lock, so it's obviously got liners plus handles and all that good stuff. And ultimately, all of these feel great in the hand, at least for me. You know, that may just be my opinion, but yeah, these feel great in the hand, and it's the reason why I have these. So yeah, alright, so on to, I guess, what's not as good. I only have one thing that really falls into the not as good for this knife. It's nothing I've been able to show you so far, but it is that I had to use Loctite on the pivot. So the only reason I have that listed as not as good is because that means for 24 hours I didn't get to play with the knife. It might sound pretty lame or whatever, but I flip these knives a lot. It's just fun. It's kind of what I do. It's my fidget spinner. It's, you know, I get my energy out that way, whatever you call it, that nervous energy. But yeah, so I had to Loctite the pivot. Darn. That's really my only complaint about the knife, if you can even consider that one. Just figured I would mention it. And also, I mean, if you got an action that's that insane, I mean, I've never actually had an action that is that insane, that opens like that. Alright, like my Shirogorov isn't that intense. The closest thing I would say, the Thorburn, right? So this one's right there, I guess. It falls straight down and it opens with a thwack. But you can hear the difference. I mean, it's a monster. Anyways, I love this knife. Thanks for watching, guys. Glad I finally decided to make a video on it. And if you got any questions, go ahead and leave them down in the comments section. Thanks for watching.